wide open and my eyelashes still. Finally, I crawled and stumbled into my bathroom, then stood up and attempted to wash my face. The medicine cabinet mirror would not allow me to forget the previous night. I knew I was in deep trouble. I went to pick up the phone and realized that it was off the hook. Once I got a dial tone, I started to dial 911, but ended up calling a taxi instead. It was only later at Howard University Hospital, seated in the busy emergency room among gunshot victims and drug addicts, that I realized that I wanted to live. Why I wanted to live was not quite clear, but I knew that I must live. My suicide attempt the night before had been unsuccessful for a reason. Some of my recollections of the days preceding my attempt are a blur. I remember being overwhelmed by hopelessness and the feeling of how badly I wanted to die and be forgotten. I wanted to join my several close friends who had gone on before me. I wanted to be released from all the loneliness, the feelings of shame and despair, the pain I felt but couldn't describe. I wonder how I, once described by a college professor as a young man of unlimited promise, could end up trying to take my own life. Was it because I was a black man living in America? Was it because I was gay? Or was it because I was a black man who was living in a world that had a problem with both? I've never had a problem being black, and on most of my days have taken great pride in that fact. I know that being light-skinned has given me a few advantages not enjoyed by every African American. But at the same time, I have to admit that sometimes I felt a little disconnected from other African Americans, like I didn't quite belong, that I hadn't suffered in the same ways of many who had come before me, and therefore wasn't black enough. Once when I was about 9 years old, I asked my mother if my cousin Charles Jr., who shares the same skin color as mine, and I were white. She gave me a "boy, you must be crazy" look and suddenly bursted out laughing and said, "No, boy, you and Charles Jr. ain't white." It wasn't that I wanted to be white, but I can look and see that our skin color was different from my sisters and most of my cousins. For some reason, I still felt different, and as a young boy, I had no way of explaining why. As a child, I only knew that if it wasn't my color, then what could it be? I don't recall the exact day that I discovered I was gay or different. When I was young, I always felt that it was something that only God and I knew, that it was our little secret and made me feel closer to Him. Still, being gay was the one thing that I prayed constantly that God would change. He didn't. I am a black gay man. Years ago, it would have caused me great pain to even write the word gay on paper to describe myself. I have cried more tears than the rivers can hold because of the word gay. Early in my career as a novelist, and regardless of the subject matter that I was writing about, I would dodge questions about my sexuality. Maybe because there was so much more to describe me. Still, each day that I'm alive, I become a little more self-assured and comfortable in my body. My healing process has been aided by saying what I know to be true. Writing has allowed me to change my self-hatred and doubt into true self-esteem and self-love. My prayers have changed out of absolute necessity so that I can fully enjoy the second half of my life. After several months of intensive daily therapy, I returned to Little Rock, Arkansas, the city in which I was raised. My doc thought it would be helpful in assisting with my recovery from my illness. At first, I was afraid that the trip might cause my depression to deepen, but I traveled back home despite my reservation. On that trip, I visited my grandmother, Bessie Harvey, the rock of my family, who was living in a high-rise retirement home. When I was young, I called it the old folks' home, but my grandma didn't appear old to me, despite the fact that she was in her 80s. Neither she nor my mom knew of my suicide attempt, and when I told them I had been sick, I think they naturally assumed I had AIDS. I quickly volunteered the fact that I didn't. They had reason to be concerned, especially since in the previous 2 years I had repeatedly informed them that another one of my friends under 30 had died. I told them I was taking medication and seeing a doctor regularly, and that with prayer, something they both believed in, I would be well soon.